Hi everyone, welcome again to Sociology 101. I am your professor. My name is Ferhunde Dilara Demir. I introduced myself in the previous video, but I'll give you some more information. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey, and I do my PhD here in health inequalities and sociology. I teach health inequalities, introduction to sociology, race relations, sociology of medicine before. I also taught research methods and classical and contemporary theory. So I'm quite experienced in teaching, and I love interactive teaching. The reason I assigned you bell hooks couple of pages is to give you an idea of my pedagogy, which is engaged pedagogy. Every teacher and instructor has a different opinion in teaching and a different pedagogy, meaning that we have different styles of teaching and different goals. For me, the ultimate goal is to co-produce a classroom and learning environment together. It is an online asynchronous class, so it has its own difficulties and it has its own advantages for all of us. If you haven't done already, I invite you to check your Canvas site. If you're a freshman and if you don't know how to use Canvas, please take some help from Canvas help desk. I will show you today that this is our home. So here are the courses. You can find your own class and click it, and this will be the home page that appears. And here I wrote a small note about the objectives of this course. I will mention a little bit more. The syllabus is here. If you click, you can download the syllabus and see. The syllabus is tentative. We can change the syllabus together. That's what I mean by engaged pedagogies. You can always give me some input, and we can always try to adjust course according to your needs. I will post announcements every week twice with reminders. This is my welcome announcement. And the course is mostly in modules. So here, when you go to modules, you see before we start. So I wanted you to take a look in syllabus. I want to go to discussions and post me some questions about syllabus or comments or some needs you have, specific needs that you have for the syllabus, anything you can think of about syllabus, and my introduction to you and reminder video that I posted last week. Then module 1, I will try to go through syllabus and the way that we establish the course structure later. So now I wanted to mention our modules and structure, but before then, let's talk about a little bit about what is sociology. So again, welcome to the course, and this is our first lecture. At the end of this video lecture, I will go through the course structure again, and I'm not going to go through the syllabus one by one again, but the course structure will explain you, hopefully, what we will do during the course. I'm very happy to teach Introduction to 101, Introduction to Sociology 101, because this is probably your first contact with sociology. And I remember my own first contact with sociology, how I was fascinated by critical thinking and to question the social norms and taboos and questions together with professors and classmates. So I expect you to have the same joyful experience, I hope. I'll try my best. So, what is sociology? First of all, sociology is a social science. To be able to understand what is a social science and what is sociology, we will break out the science, knowledge, and society parts of sociology. Historically, how science is contrasted with religion, we will mention a little bit. What is knowledge and how does it relate to practice, and what does it have to do with sociological knowledge. And we will talk about what is society and how do we situate ourselves in it. So first, what is science? Science is a systematic study. It's a collective endeavor. Some of you probably want to be a scientist or already scientists. It has 4 different dimensions: objects, objects of study, which is structures, patterns, behaviors, and dynamics. And we will mention what these mean in sociology very briefly after. It has to have some scopes: physical, natural, and social worlds we study. In sociology, we study social worlds. In sociology, our objects of study can be structures, patterns, behaviors, and dynamics. We have certain methods in science and social sciences. We do experimental research, we do observation, we do interpretation, and we will talk about these methods in the next class. And we have some purposes. We want intellectual depth and practical implications. So just to give you an example, I do study on sociological study with the purpose of improving healthcare for vulnerable populations. This is the practical implication I have in mind while doing this research. But at the same time, I want to think through how medical expertise is located in the medical sociology, and how medical experts relate to vulnerable populations. That will bring us to the intellectual depth of the question, because it might give you another discussion, a theoretical discussion of this. These are mostly intertwined, so don't think the purposes are one or the other. It is and mostly, that's why we highlighted the end. There are many disciplines that are sciences. Natural sciences and social sciences in that side, and art and humanities on that side. The only reason is historically these disciplines divest from each other. But like, if you look at, like, I don't know, 15th century or 16th century, you will see a lot of people who are philosophers and physicists together. So this divide is very new. It's a very modern phenomenon to have these disciplines so far away from each other and so clear cut. We try to have a more holistic approach while we do sociology. It is a discipline. It has its own roots, and we will talk about it in the next class. But it is a diversion from philosophy in many ways. And philosophy was diversion from mathematics in some ways, or physics in certain cases. So it's there is a spectrum of disciplines that you will see, but it is not really, sociology is in the middle in terms of complication and simplification. But again, these are very complex issues and very historical patterns that social sciences emerge, and they are different than natural sciences. Again, historically, we have science and religion. It is juxtaposed to each other in the history. It's not always the case. There are some scientists who were very religious, and there are some religious figures who were scientists in the history of science and religion. But they relate to each other in terms of helping us to make sense of the world and our lives. They are making sense mechanisms. For example, I grew up religious. Not finishing the food in my plate has been a religious norm that I grew up with in terms of not wasting. So I still have that when I was in the table. There's a behavior that I have, but I make sense of my eating in terms of finishing my plate to religion. But in terms of science, I can tell easily that I got my 2 vaccines. I believe in science, and I think that science doesn't lie us in this case, even if you might have doubts. I got my vaccines, and I take my decision through science, and it makes sense to me. So it's a making sense mechanism. Both science and religion and our lives is based on individual experiences, private interactions, personal problems, which are our biographies, which Mills mentioned in Sociological Imagination. And there is this world out there, which we are part of and situated, that we have collective experiences, we have public interactions, social interactions, we have social problems together, which is the history that we are located in, or the space and the time we are located in. And this world and our lives is always together, and science and religion gave us different ways of looking, sometimes together, sometimes separately, of making sense of these worlds and our lives. Both are worldviews, and neither is complete. These are paradigms that we think through. But in terms of what happens around in Europe, it happens much earlier in different parts of the world, but in Europe it's around like the 14th, 15th century that science and religion became diverged, and the science became a study of objects in a systematic way with some methods, as we were looking at here, with some scopes and purposes. And we come to the second question of what is knowledge and how sociology relates to knowledge. There are 4 dimensions of knowledge. You don't have to study philosophy. I did my BA in philosophy, so I wanted to give you a very brief dictionary. Ontology is about what is existence, what is our being. It's the philosophy of existence. Logos in Greek means knowledge. Or philosophy, in terms of like knowledge of ontos, meaning knowledge of existence. Epistemology is about how we know and what do we know, what is out there, what is knowledge rather than what is existence. Methodology is how do we know what we know, how do we reach out. Like, for example, we use 5 senses to be able to understand something and to know something. Mostly. There are some philosophers who think that way. It's only through 5 senses. There are some philosophers who think that it's through instinct, that we know something. So it's about the methodology of how we know things. And axiology is what is this knowledge for? What is the axio, which is value behind this whole knowledge? Like, since we were talking about the purposes of knowledge production, when we do sociology, as I said before, we do for some practical reasons sometimes, that we want to improve the conditions of workers or conditions of healthcare system. So that's the axiology, the values behind this knowledge. You might hear these things throughout the course again, just to give you a brief introduction. And there's a spectrum of knowing. There are objectivists and subjectivists, a school of thoughts. Knowledge is always in between and in spectrum. Some believe that we can agree on single reality. Some believe that we can't. It's all subjective. It's up to us and our own world. And what I observe is not what you observe. While some people can say, no, I look at the computer right now. If you look at from here, you will see the computer too. So we can agree on a single reality that the computer exists. And some people talk about one truth. There's only one truth. Some religions talk about like one God, one truth with the big T. While a lot of recent contemporary thinkers think about and talk about multiple truths. There are truths. We started to talk about post-truths, which is a different thing. I'm not gonna go there. But we see certain things in a different perspective, so our truths might be different. But at the same time, there is something called truth. There is something called true false in this divide as well. And in objectivism, quantity and numbers matter. In subjectivism, context and stories matter. And sociology is in between all those. There are some quantitative ones and objectivist ones. There are some subjective ones that we will talk about during this course. We also locate ourselves as sociologists in between knowledge and practice. Again, it's about what knowledge is, and knowledge is relational for sociologists. So when we have this discussion, even if it is true, video cam, that it is relational, I say something and you react in some ways, and hopefully I will get your reactions through discussion posts, and the knowledge production is relational. Knowledge also is practical. It might create change in social issues. Knowledge is also political. It might empower us, or it might actually manipulate us. When you look at the media, it's one of the things that you can think the most. Which media we read or which media we watch is giving us what we know. If you watch CNN a whole day, you get your news from a different source. If you watch Al Jazeera, you get a different source. If you watch Fox News, that's completely different news. So knowledge is political, and how we get the knowledge is also political. It might manipulate us, it might empower us. Internet makes things much more complicated. It might give us more information and more knowledge, but it might also manipulate us more. So all the discussions about knowledge we can think of, we can do. The other big question is, what is society? Humans are fundamentally social beings. We cannot survive without each other. Our lives in this world are interconnected. If there are two things that we can agree about what is society, these are the two things. We need each other. We can't survive without each other. And the idea of Robinson Crusoe, it doesn't exist. It's a fiction. Even then, he has Juma. Which is a racist book, but anyway. Our lives in this world are interconnected, meaning that we are connected to each other, and our connection affects each other as well. Think about your family, friends, your classmates, even if it is virtual, even me as your instructor. Our lives in this world are interconnected somehow. And our sociological imagination starts, as Mills say, the idea that individual biography and collective history are intertwined. Personal problems are embedded in social issues. We started to see the world sociologically when we start thinking about our stories connected to social stories. What we mean by it will be more clear later on, but just to give you an example from my own self. I'm a woman. I'm a woman from Istanbul, Turkey. I grew up in a quite conservative neighborhood, in a religious way. I take some decisions, and it's my individual biography. I study because I thought that was the only way to be socially mobile, because I come from working class. My parents were not making a lot of money, and my both grandmothers are illiterate. And I'm the first generation in my family. These are social facts about me, about my individual biography. But in the collective history, being a woman, I experienced certain things, such as the judgment that I have to be able to cook, clean, and do the house chores is a product of collective history and social structures, as we will see later on, called patriarchy. That is taught us very early on that we had to behave in a certain way as a woman, and it is our individual history, it's individual biography, but it is because of the collective history of humanity or womanhood, although we don't need to go to binaries, we can also think of femininity and how it is discussed. So, and some of the personal problems we have, such as like poverty, is a very social issue that will bring us to the idea of what your families are doing. Are your parents teachers? Are your parents workers? Are your parents public officers? Are your parents architects? This is going to change your entire outlook to the world, how you grew up, in which neighborhood, which race you identify with. It's going to change your entire life. Which gender and sexuality you identify with is also going to affect you. So these are the things that we can think about, the personal problems that we have, our social issues. Again, sociology is about how we situate ourselves in this big world through looking at biography and collective history together. We have our social identities, we have our lived experiences, as I told you before. Age and generation, location, race, ethnicity, nationality, citizenship, gender and sexuality, social class, family and kinship relations, language and culture. It can go forever. These are the different social identities and experiences that you can think of. There are many others. Ability, disability, how you, location, space, how you think of yourself in that space, having siblings or not having. It's a lot of things that you can think about your social identities and how this is a part of your collective history and biography at the same time. So here I want you to stop a little bit and think of yourself and situate yourself in a couple of minutes about who you are, what are your social identities, and how do you think they are relevant to the collective history. If you can think of any. Even one example is fine. And I will be very happy if you can write some of these things in the discussion posts if you find this useful. So if you go to the Some Common Vocabulary we use as sociologists about society, we say society consists of multiple elements and dimensions. And of course, these are quite variable according to which authors, which sociologists you engage with. But for now, I will give you some basic descriptions. For example, social facts. We will talk about social facts. Anything that proves that society exists beyond individuals is a social fact. For example, Durkheim studied suicide as a social fact because he told that there is a pattern in the suicide rates in a specific region in his time, of course, and started to study if having a family or not affecting having suicidal thoughts or not, or having suicides in the rate way, in the statistical way, or having a child, or age, or gender, or education. A lot of things that you can think of affecting how you behave with regard to suicide. Suicide is a very dark subject, okay, let's not go there, but you can think about the same thing with happiness. What makes you happy in terms of social facts. Having a family in itself is enough for happiness, or is it more about having a functional or having a healthy family relationships? There are a lot of people who study these things in sociology of family. Social structure. Social structure is overarching patterns and dynamics of society. I know it sounds very scary, these words, but just think about anything that affects you beyond the individual. Social structure is patriarchy, that men and masculinity are valued more in a system. Social structure is white supremacy, that certain races are seen more valuable within the society. This doesn't mean it's black or white. It means hegemonically, dominantly, white race is dominant. It's or when you can think of hegemonically in general, despite the exceptions, men are more powerful in politics, for example. We can think of all these things are changing, of course. But social structure is bigger than individuals. And for example, having one black president doesn't change the fact that politics is a mostly white space. So, but at the same time, it creates a crack in the social structure. So you can think about all these things. And social structure are not necessarily always horrible, evil things. It's any patterns you can think of as dynamics of society. Social institutions are larger fields and entities that constitute society. So, for example, family is a social institution. What else? Organizations are social institutions. Like, for example, companies that you work for are social institutions. Our relationships are social institutions. So these are larger fields and entities, but smaller than social structure, and different than social structure. Social structure is a type of pattern that affects these institutions. Like, for example, when we say patriarchy is a social structure, family as a social institution is affected by it as an entity. Culture is a very interesting concept, and we will talk about it again, but it's shared ways of living that are passed down generations. It can create a lot of confusions, and it's also very real, like from the food we eat, to the way we speak to our elders, to our gestures. I'm Mediterranean, I will always use my hands, you will see it, to the way that we refer to people. A lot of things are about culture, and it is also very problematic because, like, are there an American culture? I'm not sure. Are there an Northeast culture in America? Probably there is. So it's a lot, but it depends on which county you are. Are there anyway? The other concept that we will talk about society is the socialization. So this is the process through which individuals become part of society. Again, growing up with siblings is part of our socialization. Going to school is part of the socialization. A lot of things can be part of socialization. It's just a process that you can think of in terms of how you become part of your society. Think about these questions. They are very interesting questions that probably we didn't pay that much attention before. Sociology paid attention to all those questions. I wanted to start the course with this brief introduction of kind of dictionary or definition with some examples, definitions with examples. But now I wanted to walk through the structure of the course. So we have units or modules for this course. I designed it in a way that there are 7 different themes that we will talk about after the first 3 lessons. The first 3 lessons are common knowledge, the basics of sociology, and we will go through the others in a couple of minutes. We have video lecture, in which we will go through some assigned readings. Like this one is a video lecture. I will post it. And then the next class, I will ask you to watch a documentary, mostly. So, okay, just to give you the idea, these units will start after the first 3 lectures. The first 3 lectures is mostly me lecturing to you, so that we have common vocabulary or common ground to be able to do sociology together. Then we will start the teams one by one, in which first of these units are the lecture, video lecture. The second is a movie or a documentary film. And the third one is online discussion by you. So how it is going to happen is, this is kind of experimental. I'm trying this for the first time as well. But I want you to sign up for courses, and then for these units. I will send you the sign up sheet soon. And because we are 111 people altogether, it will be 11 to 13 people for each unit, even more, I guess, to 15 people, because we have 7 units. So I will allow you to register up to 14, 15 people. And then we will open up a Google Doc together to find as a group of these people. And each week another group will do it. So it's only once you will do this in your class. And it is a big part of, it's 22% of your grade. It is about your ability to discuss certain subjects with your peers. And you will either write down in a Google Doc, or you will have a Zoom meeting, and you will discuss 2 discussion questions that you as a group decide and talk about it. And each one of you has to give a couple of minutes of position or discussion about this question. Choose one question. You can have 2 general questions that you will post to the entire class, and you will discuss within these Zoom recordings or within these Google Docs in a written way. So there will be 2 formats for this. One of them is Zoom recording. You don't have to show your face, of course, but you can put your video and then share the Zoom recording with me, so that I can share with your colleagues, classmates. The second way of doing it is to write a Google Doc and discuss it as a chat with each other. And then post the entire discussion as a Google Doc. But you have to write, like, if I write is, Dilara, I want to answer this question in this way. If you think about society, blah, blah, blah. So I don't talk, but I write, whichever you prefer. And then the entire writing will be, and all of you will write in, and the entire writing will be posted on Canvas for other students to read. And then everyone in classroom will comment on your discussions. I hope it makes sense. Fishbowl means that you have a small group discussing and the bigger group is listening. Normally in a classroom it happens that way, but since we have a virtual classroom, it will be a recording of some sort, either written or visual or audio, and then the rest will respond. Will respond to it. After the discussion, reflection on discussion, the discussion posts are very important, and they are due the Sunday of that week for online fishbowl discussions. Afterwards, you reflect on your friend's discussion, and the class structure is that way. It's always 1 lecture, 1 documentary, and then the discussion, including readings, lecture, documentary, into discussion. The group that will do the discussion that week will choose 2 discussion questions, and every member of the group have to respond at least 1 discussion question that they decided. So it's about your ability to ask questions and to be able to take positions in those questions as a sociological imagination. There will be more guidance about like how discussion posts can be done. There will be discussion posts on lectures as well. So it is literally, discussion posts will be very regular for this class. And for people who might be working, who might not have some time very quickly, I did not limit them as Tuesday, Thursday. I limited them as until the Sunday. So every week you know your task, and Sunday midnight it will finish for you. For this week it is Wednesday. I will post one lecture, and I will try to post another one on Friday, hopefully, if not next Monday. And then we will have mostly lectures and some task list every week for every unit. And I will send it as announcements and reminders as well. You have to open up. Okay, let's go to something in your course module. So if you see this course, there is a view course in the home page. There is view course notifications. You have to enable the notifications to be able to get your like the Canvas notifications as your email. Otherwise, it will be only on Canvas, and it will be only through these to-do list. That I don't want you to miss anything. So when you go to modules, when you go to module 1, which is the unit 1, I mean, we didn't start the units yet. It's the basics of sociology, the introduction. There's a checklist page. When you click it, you will see what you should do this week. Hopefully this will be helpful for you. And the units are here. We are starting with the basics of sociology, and then unit 1 is colonialism and history of slavery, in which we will discuss, of course, race, but other issues as well, like capitalism. And there's globalization, there's crime and prison industry complex, there's gender inequalities and feminist theory, health inequalities and critical global health, education and social class, and social movements. If you think that there is something else you want to do, please write in the course discussions, like course syllabus discussion. We can discuss, and we can change part of the syllabus if you want. If you think one of these or two of these are not so much in your interest as a whole, as a class, like 110 people are not interested in some ways, we can change it with something of your choice. I can open up some polls if there are some comments in the course syllabus discussion that we want to change some of these subjects. And I already talked about the fishbowl discussions. It's not Sakai, it's Canvas. Sorry, I keep missing Sakai. Sakai is the old version of Canvas. We were using Sakai 2 years ago. And I already explained the fishbowl discussions for you. The rest of the thing is, after every unit, there will be a short quiz. And you're allowed to miss one quiz for the units. There are 7 units. As you can see, I wrote short quizzes, 8 points each, 6 units. You can miss one. It will be time limited. It will be open books. It happens at the end of each module, so it will be about that module. Like if you learn globalization that week and that 2 weeks, it will be only about globalization subjects. So you learn, you accumulate, but at the same time you are not stressed about in final or midterm. It's just these short quizzes that you will do. There will be multiple choice. There will be one short essay question in each of them, true and false, matching. So it's some things that you are used to from your high school experience, I believe. Attendance and participation are mostly discussion posts, the video lectures, to the documentaries, and to your friends' discussion. So every week there will be at least 2 discussion posts, and each of them are supposed to be 150 words. Not that much. It's like 3-4 sentences, literally, a short paragraph. This is the attendance and participation. This is pass-fail. So you're not going to be judged of like that 1 point you get from each comment will not be like half if you post something that's not as good as your friends. It's okay, but you have to participate. And the online fishbowl discussion, as I said, is 22 points. And there are some criteria about the fishbowl discussion that I will share later. Your group work, how you collaborate are part of your thing. How you respond to a question is part of your thing. How, as a group, you came up with some intriguing sociological questions, and I will help you, hopefully, to be in that regard. So 100% is the end of this discussion. And the last thing that I want to say is our first class, we need to have some community agreements. The course, even if it's virtual, it's a community. And we have to listen actively. We have to read actively. We have to keep our minds open. There might be different opinions. There might be some opinions that you won't like. There won't be some opinions that you love. But keep your mind open to discussion. Ask questions before making assumptions about any of your friends' statements or arguments. We are not always articulate. It is a 101 class. We are not expecting you to be always articulate, so don't stress too much to express your opinions. Intent versus impact is like we might intend well, but we might have impact someone in our classroom in a bad way about something we say or something we wrote. So be aware of your impact as well, not only your intention. Critique the perspective, but don't attack the person. Critique the argument, critique the idea, not the person. Take risks, learn to be uncomfortable, and expand your comfort zone. This is very important for sociology. You will be uncomfortable. I will try to make you uncomfortable, but at the same time, you will be, if you are open, if you keep your mind open, you will end up with your own opinions and expand your own comfort zone by yourself, by just thinking, critical thinking. And please don't forget to have fun in this class, because I will have. And I want you to have too. Sociology is a very joyful enterprise, a discipline, a science, whatever you want to say it. But it gives you a different self-reflection, a different way of looking at yourself and looking at the world, to yourself actually, in many ways. When you look yourself differently, your worldviews about the world is also changing somehow. I expect very good conversations and discussions. I wish I was in a classroom with you, but there is a reason for us to do all these things virtually now. So good luck with all, and please email me any questions through either syllabus, course syllabus discussions that I already opened up, or you can email me. Take good care.